Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with the, I guess, part three of the tutorial series for the Sudoku puzzle that I had posted as a demo a while back. So we're on a roll here. So I'm trying to. I don't know if I can finish this today or not, but I posted part one and I posted part two. And if you have not watched those, you probably should, because otherwise you'll probably be lost. But I would recommend, if you're interested in this, go back and watch the earlier demo of exactly what's happening, then watch part one and part two, and that basically gets us up to the point where um, the player is how can the player solve the puzzle. So in the first part, I went through, I highlighted the switches and the variables and the common events, and I highlighted this puzzle switch event, which is actually kicking everything off. And I talked about the structure of the puzzle, how it's built, and how I am basically treating each square or each tile of the puzzle. And then in part two, picked up from there and highlighted the content of these two events over here, the puzzle setup and the solve puzzle. And basically, as I said before, this Sudoku puzzle just requires a lot of repetitive eventing, right? Repetitive command lines. And so this is done completely with events. It's 7 events right now for this version, and two plugins, which I previously highlighted, the text picture and the button picture. And I have a tutorial that focuses on those two plugins, and then I already highlighted in part one and part two. So I'm going to try to remember not to repeat some of the stuff I already did. My memory is not the greatest, but I'm going to try to focus on this part three going forward. So again, just throwing out my caveat at the beginning, I apologize for those of you who have heard this many times. I am not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I do not say that this is the best way to do this, the most efficient way to do this. Essentially, this started off as a question quite a long time ago of, could I build this? And, once I got to a point where I said, yeah, I can do this, I can figure this out, then it was more along the line of, okay, well, I just have to put in the effort, the repetitive copying and pasting and changing the values, the switches and the variables and such, and just reasoning it out to make sure that it runs. So it's not super hard once I kind of got all the pieces together. It was just a lot of repetitive work. So whether you're going to recreate this because you want to build off of it or modify it or whatever, or whether you're just watching this and you're getting some ideas, some concepts, and you're just learning, a bit here and there that will help you in other things. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm doing these videos to try to give back, and to try to show, hey, this is what I've been able to do in a way that I know works. And and in my journey, maybe I'll find better ways to do things. Who knows? So, all right, again, I'm not going to demo this. If you're just coming into this, I highly recommend you go back and watch the demos, and then watch part one and part two. All right, so part three is picking up at the end of this solve puzzle, where we were basically here, and what happens when this common event is triggered. Okay, this common event 240. So going back here, go to my common events, and as I previously highlighted, there are 81 common events, one for each square of the puzzle, right? So each one of these is a square, and there's a common event for each single one, to make sure that it is basically either making it so that it's a hint, or it's allowing the player to input a value, right? So these are those 81 events, which once you do one, it's just basically copying and pasting, changing the name, and then changing some values. Okay, so now we're not doing the puzzle reset yet. So Sudoku solve puzzle. This is the common event 240 that's being called when the player tries to solve the puzzle. And the way they do that is that this solve puzzle event basically puts a little question mark down at the corner of the screen, and it is clickable. So the player can click on it, and that triggers this event to run to see, are there any errors in the puzzle. Now, I previously said, and in part one of the video, I highlighted all the switches, all the variables that I have, and I talked about how this puzzle is structured. It has rows, it has columns, and then these, sets of 9 squares, I call a group, right? So a Sudoku puzzle has 81 total squares, right? It's a 9 by 9 puzzle. So what this does when you try to solve the puzzle, when the player clicks on that icon and it triggers the common event, first thing it does is it's going to turn off the Sudoku puzzle error switch if it was previously on. Now it might have been on for maybe they tried to solve it before and now they're clicking on it again. It doesn't really matter. Some of this stuff I ended up putting in simply because as I was bug testing, trying to see if everything functioned, little things didn't work right here or there, or they didn't do what I expected. So I had to go back and add some things in. So, I put this here for an instance where it was creating a problem somewhere else. So when this common event is called 240, first thing it does is it turns off the switch Sudoku puzzle error. Okay, so it's going to turn that off. Then the thing it's going to do, it's going to make sure that my variables that are tracking the errors are reset to 0. Because if, the first time you click on this, they're going to be 0. But then you might come back and click on it again, and they wouldn't necessarily be 0. So it's just resetting them all to 0. So Sudoku column error, Sudoku row error, yeah, you can't even say it, error, Sudoku group error, and then Sudoku total errors. Okay, that's one is being zeroed out. So what's happening, and I guess I'll explain it. I explained it previously, but I'll explain it because this is what it's doing now. So anyway, those are variables that were set up to help track the errors. Now, what it's going to do, and this is all just repetitive copy and paste once you have set up the first one. So the first one here is there's this variable is declared as an array, an empty array. And I've covered this before. I like to use arrays quite a bit. So the variable Sudoku column1 is set using the script option, and it is just an empty array. There's brackets there, okay? In an array, you would usually put values in here, either strings, right, with quotation marks, or just numbers, and these are comma separated. But if you leave it empty, then basically it's established as an array, and you will then usually push or add values to that empty array. So the first thing I do is I declare this variable, Sudoku column1, as an empty array. What this is doing, okay, this first part, is this is pushing all of the variable values for the first column. So this is column 1 in the puzzle. And these are the variables that line up with those squares. So the script, this is an example of where you can do the script a bunch of times, right? The JavaScript a bunch of times within the script command. And I've highlighted this in other tutorials before, but the script is basically $game. I'm going to get out of there so it doesn't highlight it. It's $game variables dot value, and make sure you pay attention to where capitals are. And then in parentheses 682, that's the array, right? So that's this variable, which is an array. So it's saying, hey, take this array, this variable, this array, dot push means add. You're going to add to the array, and then you need to tell it what to add. So in parentheses, so opening parentheses, $ game variables dot value, and then in this set of parentheses, the variable number 601, and then the closing parentheses, right? That came from here. So this script is basically saying, hey, take the value of variable 601 and push it to that empty array 682. So now that array, when this is run, when this line is run, whatever value this variable had, it's now added to this array. And then it does the next one. Variable 604, 607, 628, 631, 634, 655, 658, 661. That's the variables going down this column. Okay? And why is it doing this? Well, because when these are done, right? And again, you can write when you're inside here, you can write this once and then copy and paste it 8 more times and then just change the variable number. You have to know what the variable numbers are, but you just change that and you're done. Okay, for that part. When this is run, it will push 9 values into this array. And those values have to be 1 through 9. They cannot be repeated. Remember, in the way Sudoku works, and if you don't know how Sudoku works, then I'm surprised you're interested in this. But the way Sudoku works is that within these 9 squares, the numbers 1 through 9 have to appear. They can't repeat. Every column has to have 1 through 9, and the numbers can't repeat. And every row has to have 1 through 9, and they can't repeat. So if this is a 1 and this is a 1, well, that's not going to work, because they cannot have repeating numbers in any column, any row, or in any group. So this is pushing the value of those variables into the array, and unless there's an error, it should basically be 1 through 9 with no repeating numbers. So the next part is a script, and this is a conditional, essentially this is a conditional branch check. It's an if else, and it's done with a script. Why? Because you can do a bunch of, if this and this and this and this. That's what these double ands are, right? So inside the script field, okay, this is how it looks. If, okay, and then you're over here, you're basically, you can make new lines after these ands, okay? I'm going to go to the other screen to actually walk through it. But here's the script. This is what it looks like. All right? And essentially, the way you read this is if, again, this is in the script version, if, and then parentheses, $game variables dot value 682. So if the variable 682, which is an array, dot includes. So this is going to check the array to say, does it include the following? Okay, and right after includes, what you want to check that it includes is in parentheses. Okay, so if it includes 1. So if array 682 includes the number 1, and the array, okay, so copy and pasted, 682, includes the number 2, and it includes the number 3, and the number 4, and the number 5, and the number 6, the number 7, the number 8, the number 9. So that's a bunch of essentially conditionals, right? If this variable 682 includes all of these, 1 through 9. Now, maybe there's a simpler way to do this in JavaScript. I don't know. I just know that this works. So that's what I did. So I tested it. It works. So that's what I did. And then you have your closing parentheses. Okay, so opening parentheses, closing parentheses. Now, you then have a curly bracket. All right. And this is basic. So we're doing our closing bracket. And then what it's doing is it's telling, in script form, it's saying what to do if all of these things are true. So if 682 includes the numbers 1 through 9, then curly bracket, do this, which is $game switches dot set value. Remember, pay attention to your capitals. And then in parentheses, you identify the switch number, 142, comma, and then true means you're turning the switch on, and false means you're turning the switch off. So that's what this line is doing. So if this array contains the numbers 1 through 9, then turn switch, you notice this is not a self switch, it is just a switch, turn switch 142 on. Okay, true. Then you have your closing curly bracket for this first part. And then you have your else, right? Because if statements have else's, if else. You have another opening curly bracket, and you say, what do you do in the else branch? What do you do if it's not? If it doesn't contain the numbers 1 through 9? And this is repeated, the game switches. 142 is being set to off, false. And then you're closing curly bracket. So what this is doing, so this is pushing the numerical value of these 9 variables into the array. This is, by using a script, is basically doing a conditional branch check with an else to say if, whoops, trying to do it, if this array includes the numbers 1 through 9, okay, and this is exactly how you do it, then, right, curly bracket, basically use this to turn the switch 142 on. And what that means is that it's right. Back on the first part of the videos here, I highlighted that I have switches for every column, every row, and every group, and the switch is basically identified as is it right, right? So there's no errors essentially. So there's no errors here. You're turning it to true. So that switch is on. If there is an error, so it doesn't contain the numbers 1 through 9 because it has a duplicate in there or something, or maybe it doesn't contain some numbers because you clicked the solution button before you finish the puzzle, then it's going to be, then in this instance, it would be false. Okay? And so that's the first thing it does. All right, so it turns off the Sudoku puzzle error switch. It resets the variables, these 4 variables, and then it checks. Hey, remember column 1? Uh, do you have a value in each one of these squares? And are they all different values? Are they 1 through 9? Okay, that's what this is doing. Then what it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, I need to now do a check. I need to do a conditional branch check. If Sudoku column 1 right is on, that's 142. 142 is this switch. If it's on, don't do anything. Just go down to the next section. Else, meaning it's not on, it's off, then it's going to take the variable 709 Sudoku column error and it's going to add 1 to it because it basically found an error in the column. And it's going to take the variable 712 Sudoku total errors and it's going to add 1 to it because there's 1 column error and the total errors is now 1 if this is off. So you say, well, how do I know that this is the same as this? Well, I would just have to go back to, I can just randomly do this, right? I can go to control switches, and then I can go to 142, and here it is, Sudoku column 1 right. Okay, so I have to know my switches. All right, so So that's the first set. So from here to here is the first part that you have to get right. Once you get this right, you can copy and paste this 17 more times because you have to do this 17 times, 18 times in total. 9 columns, 9 rows. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. It's not 18 times. You have to do it 27 times, right? So 9 columns, 9 rows, and then 9 groups. So there would be a total of 27 of these. So again, I'll just say it. Once you get this right, you can copy and paste it and then just update the values. So here's the next one, right? We get down to this one. This is going to be Sudoku column 2. So you would change, so you could copy and paste. You could copy and paste this, right? Copy, paste this, and then what do? You change this variable to the next one, Sudoku column 2. It's an empty array. You change this, but what do you have to change? Well, these are different, and then this is different, of course. So you'd have to change this to the array 683. So you change this value, and then these should be just being changed by 1, right? So this is 602, this is 601, this is 605, this is 604. So the way I had this set up, right? Hopefully, pay attention to detail, but you just have to make sure that you would update your array and then update your variable. So again, it's pushing 9 values into this array. This is the same as above, but now you just have to change what? You got to change your 683, which is the array. The include stays the same. So it's 1, 2, that stays the same. So in this one, you're just updating the value of the array. And then this one, you have to make sure you update the switch, right? So above it was 142, now it's 143. So just a few changes that you have to make within the script, right? You just go here, edit, and then you just change it, right? Change the appropriate value. And then this is essentially the same except that you have to update the switch. So you change this from Sudoku column 1 right to Sudoku column 2 right. And then these stay the same because if it's not, because remember, if it's on, you don't do anything. So it is right, it's correct. Otherwise, else, you're going to add 1 to Sudoku column error. So you're going to have another column error, and you're going to add 1 to the total errors. And then guess what, folks? The next one is exactly the same. So you change it to Sudoku column 3, you update the array value, you update the variables, and then in this one, you just have to update the array value, and then you update the switch, and then you update the switch, and this is the same because you're still dealing with column errors. And then column 4 is the same, right? Again, you're copying and pasting and just changing the values. So you do the same thing for column 4, column 5, column 6, column 7, column 8, column 9. So you do all your columns. Then you just start in on the rows. And again, you could still copy and paste. You just have to change this to Sudoku row 1. So your variable is going to change, empty array. You update this. You update this, right? So you're just updating the values, whichever ones show up in this row. You update your array, and then you update your switch. And then for this one, you have to change this. Sudoku row 1 is right on. Now, and then there's one other change. This, you're now using the variable for Sudoku row error, right? Instead of column error. You're still using this one, Sudoku total errors. because this tracks whether it's a column error, a row error, or a group error. Doesn't matter. And again, once you have this done correctly, you could start copy and pasting this one so that you're still close to your row stuff. And you do the same thing for row 2, and you make your appropriate changes, right? Sudoku row 2 right, Sudoku row error. You do the same thing for Sudoku row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, row 8, row 9, and then you start in with the group. It's the exact same thing. It's just now you're using these 9, right? So the columns, you use these ones, the rows, you use these ones, and for the groups, you use these ones, and these ones, and these ones. Okay, but other than that, it's the exact same thing. You take your variable for Sudoku group 1, it's an empty array, update your array number, update your variables. In the script for doing the if then else check, update your array, update your switches, change the switch here, and then this has to change to the Sudoku group error. So now you're tracking how many errors there are in the group for the groups. Total is still total. You're still adding up the total of all the errors. And then you do the exact same thing for group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6, group 7, group 8, group 9. Okay? And then you get down to this is the last part. So you basically do that 27 times. Again, a lot of just copying, pasting, updating the values of things, right? Updating variable values, variable numbers, I meant, update switch numbers, that sort of thing. So it's just a lot of just repeated attention to detail work. It just took a long time. Now, the next thing it does, and again, I think I mentioned this in a previous part. The reason I did this was I was trying to figure out the best way to make sure that there's no errors in this chart. And the way I looked at it was this. Is it possible that you could come up with duplicate numbers in here that would, oh, you know what? I'm not doing that. That's right. Instead of adding these up, that's right, I forgot about that. Originally, I was thinking about adding up the total value and making sure that it equaled, whatever 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 all the way through plus 9, whatever that equaled. But then I started thinking, wait a second, you could have duplicate numbers that might end up with the same total. So that would be problematic. But instead, I guess I forgot about this. Instead, you're actually pushing these values into an array, so there's no duplicates. There's no possibility for duplicates in these columns, rows, or groups, because if there is a duplicate, then it's going to show as an error. Okay, so actually, yeah, I forgot I had changed that, so that's good. I don't think there's any possibility of you getting the puzzle wrong doing it this way. So now the next thing it's going to do, it's going to do this conditional branch check. Okay, and it's doing quite a bit of things. So let's look at it. So if Sudoku total errors is 0, so that means it checked all the columns, all the rows, all the groups, and there were no errors. Well, then that means the puzzle is solved. The puzzle is solved correctly. So what does it do? If this is true, right, if this is 0, it's going to turn the switch puzzle solved to on. So I'm turning on a switch, puzzle solved. It's going to wait 10 frames. Okay, now let me just explain this. I discovered, and I'm sure other people know this too, or maybe not, but I discovered that sometimes the RPG Maker can go so fast that it can actually cause an error if you don't have a tiny bit of a weight. And um, sometimes, especially like in this type of eventing, where you have, say, two events being turned on at the same time, and they're both running in parallel, it's possible that something weird could happen every so often, depending on how things basically trigger. And so when I was testing this, a few weird things were happening. And so the reason I put a weight here is that this switch puzzle solved, uh, it might have an impact on something else going over here that is running in parallel. So I wanted to make sure that that took effect first. So I'm just waiting 10 frames. That just gives the processor enough time to make sure that by turning this switch on, whatever that affects is going to happen before it does the next thing. So just a simple little 10 frame wait can often make the difference between something sporadically working right or wrong, or causing a problem. So then what's the next thing that's happening? I'm using four different scripts, which in theory these could all be merged together. But again, sometimes I have to add things that I didn't have before. These are all single. It doesn't really matter. What are these doing? I've highlighted this before. So this is the script that's basically turning on a self switch for any map, any event, right? Any switch, self switch that's available, A, B, C, or D. So $game self switches dot set value. Pay attention to the capitals, and then opening parentheses, opening brackets. 30 is the map. That's the map I'm on. 2 is the event over here, solve puzzle. And then C is the self switch that's being turned on or off. And true means turning on, false means turning off. So what this is doing is it's turning on the switch for the puzzle is solved. It is then turning on the C self switch for event 2, the B self switch for event 1, the D self switch for event 4, which we haven't covered yet, and then the B self switch for event 5, which we haven't covered yet. But essentially, that is when on in part 2 of this tutorial, I highlighted the pages where these events are being moved to empty commands, right? It's a page with no commands, and it's action button, so it's not running in parallel. This is essentially what's doing that for those two events. So all of these events have to have their event pages changed when you solve the puzzle, and that's what these things are doing. They're turning all of these self switches in these events to true. They're turning them on. It's going to wait 10 frames. Again, just allowing this to take place before something else happens. Then this is similar to what we saw in the solve puzzle. It's going to use the plugin TextPicture. It's going to show an icon 91. That's the green check mark. So it basically is changing that question mark in the lower right corner of the screen from a question mark to a green check mark. And then this plugin requires the show picture. So it's number 99. None, because the text is the image. And of course, you got to put it in the right spot. And then it's going to erase picture 97. And you're like, well, what is picture 97? Well, picture 97 is done over here. So I wouldn't worry about it right now. But this is basically erasing that picture because it's no longer needed. All right, we're solving the puzzle. So it changes that icon to a green check mark. It erases a picture that is on the screen because it's no longer needed. And then it's doing that same plugin command. This is displaying the text to the player, solved. Congratulations. And if it's changing the color, so solved is a different color, and I think it's green. And then /C0, that basically changes the color back to white. So if you and you probably don't have to do this here, but I'm overly cautious. If you're in the middle of a text thing, like for instance, um, /C29 is changing this to green. If I wanted congratulations to be something else, I'd have to do it. I'd have to change it to something else. Or actually, I did that. So I'd have to go back and check. Maybe this plugin behaves differently. In theory, with regular text, it changes the color until you change it back. But I'm not going to go back and check that now. That would be, I don't know. Maybe I checked it, maybe I didn't. I don't know. But anyway, that's what the /C is doing. It's changing the color. And in theory, it's changing it back to white. 0 is white. So it's going to display that text as picture 98. So show picture 98, and then it tells it where to show it. It's going to wait 180 frames, which is basically 3 seconds. So it's just allowing the player to see the solved congratulations for 3 seconds. Then it is Then it's basically showing a text. Press enter to continue. Okay. Um, I inserted this in here because something weird was happening, and uh, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but or maybe I'm misremembering. But I want to say something weird was happening. I inserted this to make it so that you had to click on it to make it advanced. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it's something different. Whatever. But this is here just so they can click the enter button to progress. Okay, in theory, they could sit there and wait for a little while if they wanted to. And this is still on the screen. It hasn't gone away, right? Because we haven't told it to go away yet. So then what does it do? So it's going to take the switches, Sudoku Puzzle 1, Sudoku Puzzle 2, Sudoku Puzzle 3, it's going to turn them all off. Now, only one of them can be on at any given time, but we don't know which one it is. So it's just turning all of them off, just to make sure that they're all turned off. And then it's turning the puzzle solved off. Okay, so we turned puzzle solved on here to do some stuff, but also this is making some of this other stuff do stuff, and which we'll get to. And then it's turning that off. Okay, and again, I had to tweak some stuff when I was doing the timer and the score, penalty, and bonus. That required me to tweak some of this stuff. Okay, so it's turning off that switch, puzzle solve. This is a script I've highlighted before. It's a very handy script, especially in something like this where you have a whole bunch of pictures you're using. $game screen dot clear pictures. Make sure you pay attention to your capitals with an open and closed parentheses. That essentially erases all the pictures. So instead of erasing one picture at a time, it erases all pictures on the screen. So that's a very helpful thing to use. Then we're using this plugin command to replace the score. So the score shows up down here. Okay, that's added to the screen by this event here. But if we clear all the pictures, that score is going to go away. Well, I want the score to still show, so we're going to add it back. So we're using the plugin command. The text is score and then the variable. So score and then /v variable 718. That's the actual variable storing the score. And then, of course, this is the show picture command to get that to show up on the screen. And it's in the same location as it is placed up here. So once again, an event we haven't talked about is putting a score on the screen, but I'm clearing all the pictures. So I want to put it back on the screen. So it's like it never disappeared. Then what this is doing, because remember the puzzle is solved now, it is resetting all of the variables for the puzzle to 0. This is very, very cool. I didn't know why I would use this until I did this Sudoku puzzle. This is using the control variable, but it's using this range option. So you select range, you tell it the variable range, and then it sets all of these variables to the same thing. So in this instance, it's setting it to 0 because I want to reset the entire puzzles, so in case you want to play again. This is very, very cool. Didn't know why I would use this again until I started working on this. Same thing with switches. It under control switches, you have the range option, which allows you to turn on or off a whole range of switches. Okay. And because there's a gap, you notice my switches, there's a gap between them, 141 and then 175. So this is turning off all the variables from, I'm sorry, it's setting all the variables from 601 to 681 to 0. Then this is changing all of the switches from 61 to 141 to off. And then it's changing all of the switches 175 to 255 to off. So it's like it's resetting the game. Okay. And then this is setting the player free. Remember a long time ago in another part, I showed that you set a movement route for the player and then you repeat, and that just basically freezes the sprite on the map in place. Well, this sets them free because you set the movement route to the player, no commands, no wait, no repeat. So it doesn't really do anything, and then it just sets the player free. The player can now move. All right. So that's setting the player free. Now, this is the else branch, meaning that going back up here, it only does all of this if there's no errors. If there is an error, so if the total error count is more than 0, that's the else, then it's going to turn the switch Sudoku puzzle error to on. So now it's telling another event that the Sudoku puzzle error is on. It's going to wait 10 frames because I want that other event to do something. Then it's going to use that plugin command to display the errors on the screen. So over on this side of the screen over here, underneath, right? So over here, it's not in the best place. It's kind of hard to see, but again, this is just experimenting functionality, make sure it works. It's basically showing this. So changes the color, and then it has column errors, colon. And then underneath it, it changes the color, and it does the variable 709. That's displaying the total number of errors in the columns. Then it's row errors, and again, changing the colors back and forth. And then this is the variable for row errors, and then group errors, and then this is the variable for the group errors. And you do this, and then it shows up on the screen this way. The column errors is on one line. Underneath it is the value of variable 709. Row errors is underneath that, and then the value of variable 710. And then group errors is underneath that, and then the value of variable 711 is under that. It displays it exactly the way you type it. And then this, of course, is showing the text. So picture number 97, got to tell it where to go, and it's showing that on the screen. And then that's it. That's the end of this common event. Okay? So, once again, when you first access this common event from the solve puzzle, because the player clicked on the question mark and said, hey, I want to check to see if I solved it right, then it does this up here. It turns off the Sudoku puzzle error switch. It sets these to 0 because we're going to double check them all to make sure what is the value. And then it goes through this part, right? This is one set, and it does that for it does this for 9 columns, 9 rows, and 9 groups. And we talked about exactly what it's doing, setting an array, and then adding the 9 variable values to the array, and then checking through script if, then, else, and it's basically saying, hey, if the array contains the numbers 1 through 9, then you turn on the switch true, turn this switch on. Else, otherwise, make it false, and then this is the switch you're turning on. Sudoku column 1 right is on, then you're not doing anything. You're going to go down and check the next one. Else, meaning it's off, you're going to count it as an error. You're going to add that to the column, you're going to add that to the totals. You do that a total of 27 times, 9 for the columns, 9 for the rows, 9 for the groups. And then once you're down, yep, Sudoku 3, once you're all the way down here, once you do that the last time, then you have your conditional branch that says if Sudoku total errors is 0, meaning everything's fine, then you go through these steps, right? Turn on the switch for puzzle solved, basically turn these self switches on for these events, wait another 10 frames, change that icon to a check mark, erase picture 97, which we'll get to, show the text solved, congratulations, press enter to continue, turn off the switches for puzzle 1, 2, and 3 because we're getting ready to reset the puzzle, turn off the puzzle solved because you don't need it anymore, something over here has already done what it needs to do, clear all the pictures, put the score back on the screen because it got cleared through the clear pictures, reset, or I should say, set all the variables that were used to 0, turn all the switches to off, set the player free. Else, otherwise, if you made errors in the puzzle, then turn on that switch Sudoku puzzle error, and then use that plugin command to show all the errors, the columns, the rows, and the groups, and display it on the screen. And then that will stay on the screen. That will stay on the screen until you reset the puzzle. Okay, this will stay on the screen until you reset the puzzle. You could change that if you wanted to. If you wanted to, change it and erase it and then redraw it, you could do that. I just did not bother. Okay, so that's the common event for solving or trying to solve the puzzle. All right, so that pretty much takes care of the puzzle setup, the solve the puzzle. The puzzle switch is not 100% taken care of because we haven't talked about the, hey, you can choose your own hints. And then this is the choose your own hints. So let's just take a look. You know what? I'm actually going to stop it there, I guess, because these videos are so long. I'm going to stop it there. And then the next video, I think I'll do the player chooses their hints and finish up that part. And then probably the last part will be highlighting the option for reset, timer control, and score and penalty or bonus. Because these are the things I added last, actually. So when I added those functionalities last, that required me to insert things in a bunch of places. And that's one of the things that was kind of delaying this when I was trying to test and bug fix and finish. So I'm going to stop this here for now. And then the next part will be about allowing the player to choose their own hints. Okay, so that's part 3. Again, if you're watching these and you're paying attention, bless you for your durability or your whatever your ability to hang in there. I know these are really long, but this is actually a lot of eventing. But I learned a lot from it, so I'm glad I did this. I have no regrets about making this whatsoever, and I am going to circle back and basically convert all of this over to an icon based. I've been working on that and I kind of moved on to other things. But I'm going to convert this to icons because this could be a game. I mean, if you wanted to make this as a game, you absolutely could. You could probably do some other quality of life stuff and some fun stuff, but essentially this is a game. So anyway, I will try to get the next part up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it today, but I'm hoping to be able to wrap up this series tomorrow. This is our last day. Tomorrow's our last full day here. So anyway, I'm gonna try to do that. Um, I'm glad you found my channel. I hope you find this helpful. I hope you find some of my tutorials helpful. I hope you're able to gather some stuff from it that you need. If you do find these helpful, if you do appreciate the effort that goes into it, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, leaving comments. I do like getting the feedback. I This is a big investment of time. And I'm just doing this in the hopes that it will help someone in their journey, just like all the other people who I watch their tutorials or I got assistance from people. So I'm just hoping, I want to give back, and I'm hoping this helps people. So, and again, I hope I haven't made any mistakes here that throw people off. So again, feel free to leave comments. You can find me on rpgmakerweb.com, over in the forums. My username is the same. It's Zombie Kids Rule. So you can send me messages over there if you want to. And anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll keep working on the next couple parts to this to wrap up this series, because there's other things I want to finish up and post videos on. So in the meantime, folks, I hope you're having an awesome day. Happy gaming, happy game developing. I hope you are loving using RPG Maker. Hope you're loving learning it and exploring it and learning and basically experimenting with it. And I will get another video up as soon as I can. And in the meantime, have an awesome afternoon, and I'll talk to everybody later. Bye.